Hello. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Learn with Flo. If you are new here, I am so excited to have you. Welcome to our Monday series where we get to really do a deep dive onto lots of different relevant health topics as they pertain to the world of medicine and hormone health and gut health, all of the good and fun relevant topics. If you have been with us and you are a loyal follower of our Learn with Flo series, you know that we have been on quite a journey of talking about gut health this month, specifically talking about starting off our series strong. We discussed one of the most common symptoms that individuals come and see me with in private practice, and that is bloating. Bloating is probably the most common symptom that I tend to see, mostly because it's something that's very apparent, especially for females. We can feel it a lot in our overall body composition, definitely in how we present ourselves to the world every day. And more often than not, when you are feeling bloated, you will do anything to fix it. It is a very uncomfortable feeling. But a lot of times what the first thing we do is we start blaming foods for this response. And so we talked about, what do you do when you have eliminated gluten, you've eliminated dairy, you've tried the low FODMAP diet, you've gone all to this extreme of more of an elimination diet trend and still not seeing success. And that's where we got a really good opportunity to talk about why bloating is truly existing from a physiological perspective. What is at the root cause of bloating? And that was an amazing segue into our conversation of last week, where we got to really talk about this term, this catch-all cop-out term that we hear quite a bit from a conventional medicine standpoint, which is irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. So taking that really common symptom of bloating, if you were to go into your primary care provider or go into a gastroenterologist and have some of those more chronic bloating complaints, they probably, like I said, would maybe run some basic testing. Maybe they would order an endoscopy or a colonoscopy. And if all things structurally look ship-shape, you would probably get the diagnosis of you have IBS, maybe handed a diet of a low FODMAP and sent on your way, right? And we know that that really isn't super helpful. That type of, even though we may feel a little bit validated of having some answers to what we're experiencing, it's still not answers going forward. So it's like, great, okay, now I know I have IBS, but like, why? And also, what do I do to correct it? So last week we really got to talk about what truly is IBS underneath the surface. What are some of the things that IBS is getting this catch-all term for? But at the root of it, there's a lot of digestive dysfunction, and a lot of it being very reversible digestive dysfunction that we can absolutely dig into if you're given the right resources and the right providers to actually be able to have some of these conversations. Because even if we call a spade, about 70% of individuals who do struggle with chronic bloating, or about 70% of people that do have an IBS diagnosis, actually have underlying issues like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO. But we know that SIBO isn't even a root cause, because SIBO is caused usually by digestive dysfunction, caused by high stress, caused by nutrient deficiencies, caused by poor bile flow. Lots of different issues that are kind of going on at the surface when you really truly take the system of medicine and start to ask, what is the root of the root of the root of the root? Not just being willing to just like, oh, stop at the surface level symptoms, hand you a low FODMAP diet and maybe some prescriptive laxatives or antispasmodic medications and just send you on your way. That to me is just incomplete care. And I feel like everybody deserves better than just incomplete care and more surface level care. So since we've done a pretty solid deep dive, I think, so far on looking at some of the, maybe someone might call it more of the conventional medicine pitfalls and gaps from getting to the root cause of a lot of these chronic underlying gut issues, I actually want to take today and start to talk about another area that I tend to see quite a bit in practice, which is individuals who have come to me actually having kind of realized that their conventional medicine workup wasn't getting them exactly what they wanted. They're like, I just feel like there's more. Every time I ask questions, there's not a whole lot of answers. I only get another prescription thrown at me, or I'm told that I'm not doing the diet well enough, or I need to eliminate more foods, and I just feel like there's more answers. So they might even dip their toes into this world of functional medicine or alternative medicine, where they start to kind of get curious and peel back the wallpaper a little bit of like, what am I missing? What am I not getting from a conventional medicine standpoint for my IBS diagnosis, my chronic bloating, my chronic gut issues? I know there's something there. So they may go through the rigmarole of even just like bravely stepping into the world of functional medicine. But what happens more often than not of what I'm seeing is individuals, even in the functional medicine sphere, depending on what type of provider you work with and how that provider has been trained, I see way too many people come into my office having been through what they thought was a comprehensive functional medicine workup for their gut, but actually what they were handed was kind of a disappointingly outdated model that I like to call the 5R protocol of gut healing, because this is a very common framework that you will hear and see in more of a functional medicine gut healing trend. And I'm here to tell you that it is very cookie cutter. A lot of people can actually get put through this framework and feel worse, or if nothing else, they feel exactly the same, but they have invested a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of dollars into kind of a cookie cutter framework that is really not even a different mindset than conventional medicine, who's just like throwing a pill at their problem. They're getting the same mindset and the same treatment from functional medicine, which they expected differently, but the only thing they're getting is the same thing, only with supplements now instead of prescriptions. So it's like, wait a second, like where is the gap here? So what I really want to talk about today is not just, like I said, we already know maybe some of the holes in the gaps of incomplete care that more of a conventional medicine system is able to offer us. So we would expect better, right, going into a functional experience. But this is what I want to bring to light and bring forward, is that not every functional medicine experience around gut health is going to be the same, because I see way too many people who come to me having, after I talk to them a little bit, having really just been put through this very cookie cutter and generic 5R protocol and been very disappointed with their functional medicine experience. And so therefore, and naturally, like it makes sense, they're a little bit hesitant to jump back into the fire because they feel like they got burned. I get it. So let's really talk about, because I don't know that, like I said, it's necessarily mainstream knowledge if you're not in that functional medicine space. But let's really dive into, I want to explain kind of like, what is the 5R protocol? How are some of these functional providers being trained to think about and look at gut health? And to me, what are the shortcomings and why do I personally not use the 5R protocol in practice? And how do I see patients actually getting better results doing something different? So if you're not familiar with this 5R protocol, let's just talk about what it is, because maybe if you have experienced some functional medicine gut restoration work, even if you didn't know what you got put through, as I describe it, you're like, oh my gosh, that was me. That was my experience. Usually, like I said, this is part of the 5R protocol framework. So 5 R's, like the letter R. The first R is remove. So if you have been part of an experience where the first thought process of your treatment plan was to remove things, and now that is either the first thing I was put on was an elimination diet, right? So if that was the very first thing that you worked with a provider or a practitioner, and the first thing they were like, we're going low FODMAP, we're doing low histamine, we're doing gluten-free, we're doing dairy-free, that was like the first recommendation out of their mouth was an elimination type diet, you were part of this protocol, okay? Or remove, in the sense of their first thing that they wanted to do was remove the bad guys. They wanted to do a parasite cleanse. They wanted to do a candida cleanse. They wanted to kill off the SIBO, or give you antibiotics for H. pylori, or give you antibiotics or antimicrobials for SIBO. If their first mission was like this search and destroy, and they're like, we have to remove these foods and we have to kill these bad guys, you have been victim of the outdated 5R protocol, because the first step is remove. The second step is replace. Then they come in and they want to replace digestive enzymes, maybe replace some stomach acid or some bile, usually again, more supplements. And then stage 3, they want to re-inoculate the gut. So they come in with some more probiotic support. And then step 4, they want to repair the gut. So they're coming in with leaky gut support, healing the gut lining. Maybe they're throwing some glutamine at the picture. And then number 5 is they talk about rebalancing the body in terms of, now we're going to talk about stress management. Now we're going to talk about sleep. Now we're going to talk about nervous system regulation. So that's really what the 5R protocol is about. Step 1 is we're removing things. Step 2 is we're replacing things. Step 3, we're re-inoculating. Step 4, we're repairing. And then step 5 is we're rebalancing. Now, on paper, you kind of hear that and you're like, that sounds logical, like gives me kind of a system. It's a systematic approach, which is exactly what I know a lot of people are really desperately searching for when the conventional medicine model fails you. It's like, oh my gosh, I just need something. And so it gives you this impression that it's this like root cause resolution. But the stark reality of the situation is that this protocol often sets people up for failure. And what I mean by that is it is a cookie cutter approach that usually gets the order of operations. It sounds systematic. You're like, oh yeah, that would make sense. Actually, the order of operations of it is actually completely ass backwards, and it's all wrong. And it frequently misses some of the most critical components of gut healing restoration. And like, where do we need to start and what is the proper order of operations? Because I'm really, really big in my practice that there is a very distinct order of operations that we have to go through, not just for gut restoration work, but when it comes to the metabolism as a whole, the hormone hierarchy. It's something I teach to all of my providers and practitioners who mentor under me, is a very strategic order of operations. And I'm telling you right now, the 5R protocol, it ain't it. I've seen way too many people get burned. It's outdated. And honestly, for many people, unfortunately, it's a trap that kind of leads to a little bit more confusion and a lot of disappointment. So remember, we talked about this in previous episodes where the digestive system is a cascade. It is a very strategic north to south process. And when we understand that the digestive system is a cascade and then the first domino doesn't fall correctly, the whole chain is going to be a mess, right? The dominoes just like they clunk over. They're not going to have this nice smooth domino effect on each other if we don't start at the right spot. And in a generalized kind of application of the 5R protocol, what we're doing is if we're starting with this remove phase, we're starting at the end of the chain. We're starting thinking like, ooh, the large intestine, it has too many bad guys in it. I got to kill. I got to remove all of these bad guys. It's like, yeah, that's at the end of the chain. And those bad guys that you're blaming, they're probably there for a reason, because there's so many things upstream of the chain that are getting kinked, and that's why the downstream large intestine and microbiome looks the way that it does. And so if we're going to go straight to the low part of the chain and start our dominoes there, it just doesn't really make sense, right? And so a lot of people almost sometimes on the 5R protocol, starting that remove phase, especially if you have autoimmune disease, especially if you have prior inflammatory conditions, or if you have a very high pathogenic load, if we start there, you're going to feel worse. And then what happens is that practitioner turns around and tells you like, oh yeah, that's die-off. It means it's working. Let's push through that. And you're like, okay. And so you like push through it harder. But in reality, that should have been like, red flag, skirt, stop, because we're obviously liberating more than the body is able to detox. The immune system is on hyper alert and the liver is stressed out. It's like, ooh, we're going to have to back up and we're going to have to redo our order of operations, because many practitioners, even the well-meaning ones, so even practitioners, if you have been through this 5R protocol experience and you're feeling seen right now and you're like, that's what happened to me. That's what they wanted to do, is they wanted to get rid of the bad guys and put me on these elimination diets. And that was like step 1. It's like they probably had good intentions. It's just that what happened is they were implementing a protocol, but they don't understand the entire terrain of how the gut fits into a bigger system or the north to south process. And so jumping straight to this remove phase with like antimicrobials or re-inoculate, and I'm going to throw a bunch of probiotics without understanding the body's innate digestive domino effect, like you're just setting someone up for failure. So it's like, trying to clean a clogged drain by pouring in like fancy expensive cleaner down the drain, when in reality the problem is that the pipe is like broken and twisted and kinked behind the wall, but yet you're just gonna pour like more drain cleaner down it, and it's like we're not doing anything like to fix the kink and the bend in the pipe. Like that's really the ultimate problem, but we're not looking downstream like that, right? Or more upstream. So the approach itself is really just flawed. So if you're listening and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like I actually think I have been victim of someone trying to walk me through a 5R protocol and it didn't work, like hear me clearly that you are not broken. You were not the problem with that protocol. You were not doing it wrong. You weren't like, oh, you weren't doing it hard enough. It was the protocol itself. And this is very commonly applied, but the protocol itself was honestly kind of setting you up for failure, especially if you had, like I said, a high pathogenic load, you have autoimmune patterns, you have inflammatory conditions already, you have known histamine issues. Like there's lots of different situations, which is a majority of the population of people that struggle with gut issues, where you can't do that. You cannot start at the bottom of the chain and expect that you're not just imploding things on the way back up. So if, like I said, if you feel this, it's like, I see you, I understand what you've been through, and I know it's like a profound disappointment. And I know sometimes it can then be hard to want to jump back in to any sort of like functional medicine approach because you feel like you've gotten burned. But I promise you that there are, like I said, providers like myself that understand how the shortcomings of the 5R protocol exist and how we want to do it differently. So don't let a previous experience completely jade you from jumping back into that. You probably, like I said, just need, now that you know what you know based off of even this conversation and your previous experience, we can get you aligned with a provider that actually knows how to do this properly versus just somebody that honestly kind of applies the same cookie cutter protocol to everybody that walks into their office. You definitely want to try to avoid that. So fundamentally, I know I've kind of talked about this, but just to highlight kind of the three main reasons or problems that I see with the 5R protocol is fundamentally we're just skipping steps. And also fundamentally, we're not working with the innate order of operations of the overall digestive system. And we're kind of trying to come in and play God in an order that doesn't actually exist. So why does this not work? Number one, we're jumping straight to this, like I said, remove phase without optimizing the north to south first. If we're going to clean out any bad guys, I have to have your drainage and detox pathways open first. I have to have your immune system on board. We're going to need that immune system. So a lot of times I see people who want to jump straight to a remove phase, but their immune system is depleted, their nutrients are depleted, they have low stomach acid, they're chronically constipated. It's like, yeah, I can't have that. I can't have any of that and do a remove phase first because it's just going to we're just going to kick stuff up that we can't actually get out of the body. You're going to have a bunch of Herxheimer reactions or die-off reactions, and then you're going to feel like something's wrong or you're broken. It's like, no. We went out of order of operation. So number one, we cannot have a remove phase as the first phase of our treatment plan. No. Also, what's happening a lot of times is not even the remove phase, but then we get this like re-inoculate phase coming in there before the terrain is ready. I am not anti-probiotics. I think probiotics are kind of this like, oh, gut health panacea. People like, I'm on a probiotic. Like there's like some badge of honor of like, I love my health because I take a probiotic. I'm like, yo, probiotics are not what you think they are. They are just a transient effect. So probiotics don't go into the gut and stay in the gut. You take a probiotic and you just get the transient benefits of the probiotic as it's passing through. Cool, great. And then you have to take it again the next day. And then you take it again the next day and you take it again. And you're just on this vicious cycle of like, I don't really feel any better. It's like, yeah, that's because you're inoculating with a bunch of probiotics before the terrain is actually ready for them. And some people can actually feel worse on probiotics, especially, like I said, if you have a lot of histamine issues, mast cell reaction issues, autoimmune issues. So it's like, I've seen plenty of people like where they were with a provider who threw them on a bunch of spore-based probiotics on like day one, and it actually like flared up an underlying SIBO infection that wasn't a problem before. So it's like, we should probably know what we're doing versus just throwing stuff in there. And then I would say my third biggest issue with the 5R protocol is that it's almost like putting the nervous system and the gut-brain axis, it's almost like putting it last. And it's like, oh yeah, and then step 5 will like come in and rebalance, and we'll talk about like stress and nervous system and your gut-brain connection and sleep like at the end. It's like, no, like you don't understand. Like that is first. That is even before we do any gut testing. Those conversations should be first, because that is the foundation of your hormone hierarchy. Like I'm not going to come in and do a bunch of gut testing on somebody that we haven't went through those foundations first, because that would just be doing them a disservice. I'm like, yeah, take my money. No, I cannot operate in practice like that. There's lots of providers who will do that. They're like, yeah, come in and we'll just give you a gut test, and we're not even going to talk about nutrition and stress resilience and gut brain axis first. It's like, no, that is not at the end, just thrown at the waist of the protocol. That should be moved to the top. And even while we're waiting on results of any testing, these are the types of things that should be implemented into the treatment plan, like phase 0, step 1. So like I said, a lot of times I just see where this 5R protocol seems like a logistical, systematic way to look at the gut functionally, but I promise you, if you feel like you've been through this, it ain't it, right? And maybe you've experienced that because maybe you felt great during it, awesome. But then all of your symptoms relapsed. That's not success to me. Or worst case scenario is like you felt worse even like during treatment, and it almost caused a flare or a setback. That would also be second worst case scenario. And then like just neutral case scenario is you felt no different, and you're like, great, now I just like wasted a bunch of time and money on supplements and testing, and like feel like I just spun my wheels. So if this has been your experience with like functional medicine, you're like, great, conventional medicine sucks. Functional medicine sucks. Where do I go? And that's where, like I said, even though I know that I tend to kind of even market and call a lot of my work functional medicine just to kind of put a label behind it, there are so many aspects of maybe more traditional functional medicine that I'm like, yeah, no, like we're not practicing that way. If I'm going to like put out the thought process and put out the bold statement of working on root cause medicine and root cause restoration, I'm not just going to throw antimicrobials at your SIBO. I'm going to ask, like, why the hell do you have SIBO in the first place? Like, what? Like, you shouldn't have that, and I shouldn't have to treat your SIBO or treat your H. pylori or treat your candida or treat your parasites multiple times a year for the rest of your life. Like, what are we doing? Like, that doesn't make any logical sense. Or taking all of these foods out and creating this fear that, like, food is the enemy. I'm like, no. Food did not, like, create this. We need to create some resiliency and some freedom, not more restriction. So when I think of, like I said, seeing some of the gaps in more of the functional medicine and designing the low down methods for this very reason, because I want you to have something that's different, a true gut roadmap to restoration, respecting the north to south hierarchy of the gut. And it goes so much better that way. And you get not only like steady improvements along the way of feeling better, but also that long-term restoration to where it's like, this shouldn't be something that we do multiple times throughout the rest of our life and like keep treating this. So if you've kind of been in the conventional medicine, gastroenterology merry-go-round, maybe you've likely dabbled in like the functional medicine that promised answers, but really actually delivered this like cookie cutter approach, and you feel frustrated and ripped off. You've probably tried decades worth of diets that never really got to the root cause of the problem, because we know that elimination diets are not, they're just a band-aid solution. And you feel like you're doing all the right things, yet getting nowhere or feeling worse. I see you. I got you. You're not crazy. This is not all in your head. What you are truly experiencing is your physiology in its finest. So this is exactly why I created my Renew Your Gut program. so that you actually get access to resources that maybe your gastroenterologist didn't have. We can actually do some functional stool testing. We can actually take a look at the microbiome, the microscopic stuff that you could do a colonoscopy, you can do an endoscopy. It's like, these are not things that we're looking at on a structured scope. I'm looking at the microscopic stuff that I can't see with your camera. When you say like, yep, look ship shape in there, it's like, no, I'm talking about the 40 trillion microorganisms that live in our gut and carry 150 times more genetic material than our own human cells. And you're here to tell me that just because you can't see it on a scope doesn't mean it's not running my show? Yes, it is. 100% it is. Or how gut dysbiosis impacts liver detoxification pathways and our skin and our mental health and our mood and our body composition. There is not one part of our body that it doesn't touch. So knowing that and creating my Renew Your Gut program, I feel super passionate about the results that it gets individuals and helps people who have not only been burned by incomplete medicine of the conventional approach, but also feel like they've slipped through the cracks of more of a functional medicine model too. So if you're interested, and what does it actually look like to not get sucked into a 5R protocol and a crap ton of just like cookie cutter supplements and more parasite cleanses? Click over to the link in my bio, head to my website, and check out my Renew Your Gut program, where you can actually get access to not only a GI map test, but also one-on-one work together, personalized medicine, where we get to meet multiple times and start to really restore the gut, starting from the foundation up, starting from the domino down, and just experiencing what that feels like in comparison to anything else that you have experienced before when it comes to overall healthcare in general. So if that's something you're interested in, click the link in my bio. I'd be happy to help you. And we get to actually talk about the physiology behind your gut health and not just some like cookie cutter protocol that never works. So check it out. Hope to see you guys there. If you have any questions, drop them in the video and we will see you guys back next week.